I am live. I'm reading The Comedians. It's a novel by Greene. It was published in 1966. And it is a story about Mr. Brown. The three comedians are Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones and Mr. Brown. They meet on a cargo ship from New York to Port-au-Prince in Haiti. We are now here in chapter 4. This is the second part of the book. The first part was about the journey. Then we heard about Mr. Brown's history. And we are now in the fourth chapter, Roman 3. The office of the Secretary of State was in one of the exhibition buildings near the port and the Columbus statue. We passed the musical fountain that never played now, the public park with its bourbon pronouncement, Je suis le drapeau Haitian, uni et indivisible, Francois Duvalier, and came at last to the long modern building of cement and glass, the wide staircase, the long lounge with many comfortable armchairs lined with the murals of Haitian artists. It bore as little relation to the beggars of the post office square and the shanty town as Christopher's palace of Sans Souci, but it would make a much less picturesque ruin. The lounge contained more than a dozen middle-class people, fat and prosperous. The women, in their best dresses of electric blues and acid greens, chattered happily to each other as though they were taking their morning coffee, looking sharply up at every newcomer. Even a suppliant in this lounge bore himself with importance in an air filled with a slow tap of typewriters. 10 minutes after we arrived, Signor Pineda walked heavily through the substitute of diplomatic privilege. He smoked a cigar and looked at no one, and without asking by your leave, passed through one of the doors which opened on to an inner balcony. The Secretary's private office, I explained. The South American ambassadors are still persona grata, especially Pineda. He hasn't any political refugees in his embassy, not yet. We waited for the 3/4 of an hour, but Mr. Smith showed no impatience. It seems very well organized, he said, once, when the suppliants were reduced by 2 after a brief conference with the clerk. A minister has to be protected. At last, Pineda passed out through the lounge, still smoking a cigar. It was a fresh one. The band was on it. He never removed his bands because they were stamped with his monogram. This time he gave me a bow of recognition. For a moment I thought he was going to pause and speak to me. His bow must have attracted the attention of the young man who accompanied him to the head of the stairs, for he returned and asked us with courtesy what we wanted. The Secretary of State, I said. He's very busy with the foreign ambassadors. There is a great deal to discuss. You see, tomorrow he's leaving for the United Nations. Then I think he should see Mr. Smith at once. Mr. Smith? You haven't read today's paper? We have been very busy. Mr. Smith arrived yesterday. He is the presidential candidate. The presidential candidate? The young man said with incredulity. In Haiti? He has business in Haiti, but that is a matter for your president. Now he would like to see the minister before he leaves for New York. Please wait here a moment. He passed into one of the offices on the inner court and came out hurriedly. A minute later, carrying a newspaper, he knocked on the minister's door and went in. You know, Mr. Brown, that I am no longer a presidential candidate. We made our gesture once and for all. There's no need to explain that here, Mr. Smith. After all, you belong to history. I could see in those pale blue, honest eyes that perhaps I had gone a little too far. I added, A gesture like yours is there for everyone to read. I could not specify where. It belongs to this year as much as to the past. The young man stood beside us. He had left the newspaper behind. If you would come with me. The Secretary of State flashed his teeth at us with great amiability. I saw the newspaper lying at the corner of his desk. The palm he held out to us was large, square, pink, and humid. He told us in excellent English how interested he had been to read of Mr. Smith's arrival, and how he had hardly hoped to have the honour since he was leaving for New York tomorrow. There had been no word from the American embassy, or else, of course, he would have arranged a time. Since the President of the United States, I said, had seen fit to recall his ambassador, Mr. Smith thought it better to make his visit unofficially. The Secretary said he saw my point. He added to Mr. Smith, I understand you are seeing the President? Mr. Smith has not yet asked for an audience. He was anxious to see you first, before you land in New York. I have to make my protest before the United Nations, the minister explained with pride. Will you have a cigar, Mr. Smith? He offered his leather case, and Mr. Smith took one. I noticed that the band wore the monogram of Senor Pineda. Protest? Mr. Smith asked. The raids from the Dominican Republic. The rebels are being supplied with American arms. We have evidence. What evidence? 2 men were captured carrying revolvers manufactured in the United States. I'm afraid you can buy such things anywhere in the world. I have been promised the support of Ghana, and I hope other Afro-Asian countries. Mr. Smith has come about quite a different matter, I interrupted them. A great friend of his who was travelling with him was arrested yesterday by the police. An American? An Englishman called Jones. Has the British Embassy made inquiries? This is really a matter concerning the Secretary for the Interior. But a word from you, Your Excellency. I cannot interfere with another department. I'm sorry Mr. Smith will understand. Mr. Smith pushed his way into our dialogue with a roughness I had not known him to possess. You can find out what the charge is, can't you? Charge? Charge. Oh, charge. Exactly, Mr. Smith said. Charge. There will not necessarily be a charge. You are anticipating the worst. Then why keep him in prison? I know nothing about the case. I suppose there is something to be investigated. Then he ought to be brought before a magistrate and put on bail. I will stand bail for any reasonable amount. Bail? The minister said. Bail? He turned to me with a gesture of appeal from his cigar. What is bail? A kind of gift to the state if a prisoner should not return for a trial. It can be quite a substantial amount, I added. You've heard of habeas corpus, I suppose, Mr. Smith said. Yes, of course. But I have forgotten so much of my Latin. Virgil, Homer. I regret that I no longer have time to study. I said to Mr. Smith, the basis of the law here is supposed to be the Code Napoleon. The Code Napoleon? There are certain differences from the Anglo-Saxon law. Habeas corpus is one of them. A man has to be charged, surely. Yes, eventually. I spoke rapidly to the minister in French. Mr. Smith understood little French, even though Mrs. Smith had reached the 4th lesson in Hugo's. I said, I think a political mistake has been made. The presidential candidate was a personal friend of this man, Jones. You ought not to alienate him just before your visit to New York. You know the importance in democratic countries of being friendly with the opposition. Unless the affair is of really great importance, I think you should let Mr. Smith see his friend. Otherwise, he will undoubtedly believe that he has been, perhaps, ill-treated. Does Mr. Smith speak French? No. You see, there is always the possibility that the police may have exceeded their instructions. I wouldn't want Mr. Smith to get a bad impression of our police procedure. Couldn't you send a reliable doctor first to tidy up? Of course, There would be nothing really to conceal. It is only that sometimes a prisoner misbehaves. I'm sure even in your own country. Then we can rely on you to have a word with your colleague. What I would suggest is that Mr. Smith should leave with you a little compensation. In dollars, of course, not gourds, for any damage Mr. Jones may have inflicted on a policeman. I will do what I can, so long as the president is not involved. In that case, there's nothing that any of us can do. No. Above his head hung the portrait of Papadouk, the portrait of Baron Samedi, clothed in the heavy black tail suit of graveyards. He peered out at us, though through the thick lenses of his spectacles with myopic and expressionless eyes. He was rumoured sometimes to watch personally the slow death of a tonton victim. The eyes would not change. Presumably his interest in the death was medical. "Give me $200, I said to Mr. Smith. He picked out $200 notes from his case. In the other pocket I saw that he had a photograph of his wife wrapped in her rug. I laid the notes on the minister's desk. I thought he looked at them with an air of disparagement, but I couldn't believe that Mr. Jones was worth much more than that. At the door I turned, and Dr. Philippot, I asked, "Is he here at the moment?" There was something about the hotel I wanted to discuss with him, a drainage plan. I believe that he is in the south, at Orcades, about a new hospital project. Haiti was a great country for projects. Projects always mean money to the projectors, so long as they are not begun. We'll hear from you then? Of course, but I promise nothing. He was now a little brusque. I have often noticed that a bribe, though of course this was not strictly speaking a bribe, has that effect. It changes a relation. The man who offers a bribe gives away a little of his own importance. The bribe once accepted, he becomes the inferior, like a man who has paid for a woman. Perhaps I had made a mistake. Perhaps I should have left Mr. Smith as an undefined menace. The blackmailer retains his superiority. So this is the end of chapter 4. Or not chapter 4, it's a Roman, that was Roman, did I say what it was? 3, I think. It doesn't matter, yeah, and so the next one is Roman 4. Have a good 15th of September.